YouTube, what's going on? HeirofCarthage here, back in Total War Warhammer 2 with some online action. This time we're going to have Skaven versus the High Elves. I know the last battle, I think I showed you one where I played as High Elves versus the Skaven. But this one is the flip side, and there are Jezzails, and everybody these days comes scared to death of the combination of Flayers and Jezzails. In this case, there's some Rat Ogres and Jezzails, not Flayers. I think the Flayers are a little scarier. But, yeah, let's check out the Skaven army, show you what the Skaven player has. He's got a front line of clan rats with shields. There are two, there's a plague monk over here, just one. And then there are Natty Bubo's sharpshooters, which is going to be the Jezzail, the Regiment of Renown. Two rat ogres. We've got Lord Skrolk, going to be a tough lord with Liber Bubonicus and the Rod of Corruption. Going to be fantastic. And he's also got Blessed with Filth and some other capabilities. Now on the side of the High Elves, and you'll see there's some sneaky rats back here. I'll get to them in a minute. The High Elves have 3 White Lions, 2 Spearmen, and they've done something not entirely like what I did, but they brought a ton of range, thinking that they can just mow the Skaven down with mass range. And then obviously the Flamespire Phoenix gives them some mobility. Now the risk of this, of course, is that single entity units are pretty at risk to Jezzails, right? And I think the other risk with his army right here is he doesn't have a lot of great ways to stop Doom Flayers. He does have this Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower here, and then as for a Lord, he's got Teclis with a net. Not a bad one in case there's Doom Flayers, so that's one good answer. And then a Noble here, but both of these guys are on foot. They don't have the speed to get anywhere near the Doom Flayers. Archers are awful versus Doom Flayers as well. Now, they'll be decent versus Rat Ogres and stuff if they need to be. Now, back in the back for the Skaven, 3 Death Runners and 2 Assassins. Quick moving. They're also going to deal armor piercing, and they can Vanguard deploy. So, pretty interesting pick. Now, you can see the Jezzails are firing away at the Flamespire Phoenix, and actually not a lot of damage being done here. So, this is probably one of the first times I think I've seen Jezzails not do a terribly large amount of damage, and it may be that they're at the edge of, yeah, they're towards the edge of their range. I think if they were closer, they might be doing a little more. Maybe not every shot's hitting. They are doing some damage occasionally, but they're just not doing it consistently. Now let's watch Skrolk approach here with his clan rats and plague monks. They're going to be overmatched by all the White Lions. They're taking a hail of missile fire here. You can see the Flamespire is going to go chase Jezzails now. He's going to use a summon right here, it looks like. This is going to be a summon of plague monks. So summons the plague monks in to help disrupt. Here comes the clan rats. Here comes Skrolk. Skrolk is already fairly damaged. And then a very nice timing here. Right as he clashes in the front line, there's going to be a nasty surprise here. The concealment bombs are in effect, and the High Elves are just not going to see these units coming until it's absolutely too late. They just saw it. So very nice use of those units. Some of the High Elf archers are able to flee, but an assassin is hot on their tail. The fight here in the center is not going great, but because of Skrolk's abilities, he's going to be able to come in here and use Blessed with Filth and other things to help slow down the High Elves. And this melee over here is great. Now, the Phoenix finally did start taking a lot of damage when it got close to the Jezzails, but it's landed on them. However, Rat Ogre's going to help. Over here, Rat Ogres are going to continue to hold the High Elf flank. And you've got the Death Runners doing the same, while this flank is the one that's being focused for a mop-up. This is where the Spearmen were, and it's actually a very nice attack here. Mopping up these Spearmen who weren't going to be able to fight against the Death Runners. Not a bad call. A quick pull-out here is going to save the Skaven infantry from fiery convocation. So, nicely done by the Skaven player there. And now that's leaving Teclis and the Noble to fight 2 Assassins and Skrolk. And that is just not going to be a good fight. Not for the High Elves, at least. Skaven managed to get rid of the Flamespire Phoenix. Routing it with that much health left is pretty impressive. It must be a factor that it was so far away from the rest of the army. And let's check out all these units doing the work. Here's Plague Monks. Death Runners skittering around. Those concealment bombs were very well used here. Very well used. The Death Runners got right up into combat very quickly. Mopped up an entire flank. And the White Lions did hold for a while, but couldn't hold once some more reinforcements arrived. And at this point, it's just a mop-up for the Skaven. Just a mop-up. Teclis is fleeing. The Noble is doing his best to get in here, but again, Skrolk, fairly tanky. He's going to be able to hold out long enough to take care of business while the rest of the rats come in. So the High Elves had an idea here, which was to use mass range like I did. And I wanted to show this for a couple reasons. One, because the mass range worked when I did it, and it worked well. It won't work for you every time. It depends on how the Skaven player actually builds their army, and there's a number of ways that they can give that mass range some trouble. Now, I had a whole bunch of heavy cavalry rather than infantry, because my thought was if he does have Doom Flayers, although Flayers are decent against cavalry like the Silver Helms, they're not near as good against those as they are infantry. So my idea was that I'll ruin all of his important units from range, and then as he tries to get to those archers, and there's too many of them for him to target them all, as he tries to get to them, you know, I'll be able to intercept and handle it. In this case, the High Elf player had better infantry, and then was using, you know, using numbers, Lothern Sea Guard, anything he could there to help bolster his strength. Let's hit in replay so you can see the entire army again. The Flamespire Phoenix is a significant investment, and I don't think it's a great investment. And the reason I say that is because, number one, when it gets close to the Jezzails, it's an easy target. And even if it can go attack the Jezzails without being targeted, it can only attack one at a time. And so I think you're better off to just have Illyrian Reavers. So for instance, if he had dropped the Flamespire Phoenix and had 3 Illyrian Reavers, which would be close to the same cost, they would have been much more useful here than the Flamespire Phoenix, because he could have split the 3 Reavers and probably killed the Jezzails. And then that would have left still a very difficult fight that he was likely to lose because of the composition. Now, the archers with light armor are a strange pick. It won't really help you against the Jezzails, or artillery for that matter, not much. So I'm not really sure what the reasoning is here with the archers with light armor, unless he had thought maybe he would have to do some standoff skirmishing with Skaven slingers. But I just don't see that being the case. Now, Sea Guard with shields, not a bad pick, because these guys can hold out against quite a few different cheap Skaven units. White Lions, I would say these guys aren't a bad pick. They're decent versus one. I just never see a whole lot where White Lions are good. Now, Teclis with a net, I like. Maybe you can control a key unit, though we didn't see it happening on the battlefield. If you're going to use that net to control key units, you got to do it well. So, for instance, maybe trying to... and then Teclis not having a mount makes him very, very slow, very vulnerable. So, anyway, I mostly liked this replay for the Vanguard play by the Skaven. Not something that you see every day, especially when it's so common to just bring the Doom Flayers. I thought it was cool to see the Death Runners deploying with the Assassin. Kind of a different way of play there. So, not necessarily to say that the High Elf player here was, you know, the world's best or, you know, brought the best. It was more just, hey, it's fun to see something different, and I like seeing something different. Hope you all did too. I've got another battle here for you, though. I'm going to play one I played one for you already. It's a High Elves versus Wood Elves. And I'm going to load into that. And while I'm loading in, I'll just tell you a little bit about what I was thinking for the matchup. Brought a couple of Reavers and Chariots. The Chariots because, you know, if I could get into any Wood Elves or Archers, obviously the Chariots should pay off pretty quick. So let me just show you the whole army here. I've got the Scions of Mathlan and 4, you know, regular Spearmen. Here's my 2 Reavers. Got my 2 Chariots on the flanks. And then I've got my 4 Standard Archers and then Sea Guard with shields on the flanks, so that they can help hold off Wild Riders, which I definitely expected. And there are 3 Wild Riders here, 2, the regular kind here with shields, and then we've got the Wild Hunters of Kurnos. So some pretty significant light cavalry, which is what I would expect from the Wood Elves. The front line, however, is just a few Eternal Guard, and then there are 4 Glade Guard. I was kind of surprised to see the Wood Elves went to stand off with the High Elves in a ranged fight. I'm trying to think of the ways in which that could be good for him. He was clearly worried about some armored infantry, I think, so he brought these Wildwood Rangers. So bringing something in case he had to be able to take out armored infantry. He's got a Glade and then a Spellsinger, Lure of Shadows. He's got the Penumbral Pendulum with the Spellsinger. So just kind of check things out here. I'm going to move my Standard Archers up. Their 180 range makes them great cannons. You can see just how quickly they start ripping into Glade Guard. Glade Guard are very low armor. They're not a bad unit against most factions, but they're not going to stand up well against the standard High Elf Archers that just have superior range, especially for the cost. So it just ends up being an easily cost-efficient. I'm going to put my Chariots up on the flank. I figured he was hiding units, and I was going to use this to draw it out, and it worked. So I can now see his hidden units. Bad news is for me is I'm going to lose the infantry fight, and Eternal Guards really aren't a bad infantry unit. They're pretty decent, in fact, for their cost. I think they just made them recently a little more expensive, but these Wildwood Rangers are they're gonna blast through my infantry. And then he's going to probably just try and get through to my archers at this point. So I'm not expecting this to be easy. See, he's going to dodge my spearmen here. He's going to try and dodge my reavers over here. I'm going to send the titanic chariot in to help put some extra damage down. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and net this wild rider here in just a moment, though I do get to it a little late. If I could have stopped it right here, it would have been perfect. But I do manage to stop it, unfortunately a little bit late, but I will put a stop to its advance there. Very nice pendulum there. Helps to speed along the passing of some of my infantry. Wasn't much I could do about that. Pulling out wouldn't really have done me a lot of good. I did manage to push off his archers, though they will regroup. And so now I've got to focus out his wild riders. If I want to win this fight, the wild riders have got to go. He managed to avoid me for a good while with the wild hunters, but I will eventually chase these units down. He's just kind of bent on doing as much damage to my ranged as possible, and he should be. My ranged is what's going to win me the fight if I win it. So the wild hunters there, very cool looking unit, by the way. Getting engaged with a lot of archers. I'm going to pull back my Sea Guard. I'm going to pull back a couple of archers over here. I used Teclis, and I have a Handmaiden as well to push back some of these units. I did push one of my chariots forward, thinking that I could go wipe out the archers, but it actually got caught up in the Spell Singer and the Glade Lord, which was a mistake on my part. And I hadn't really seen that yet, and I sent the other chariot, and then this one kind of gets caught up too. You can see that the chariots are just not as fast. So this is not good for me. I have one chariot that's kind of been ruined, and now I'm falling back and suffering a lot of losses. And my last Illyrian Reaver is the only thing holding this infantry back for a moment. Trying to take down the wild hunters. Got them focused, and there's another wild rider coming in. You can see there a pendulum that I was able to just miss. So fortunately for me, I brought the Handmaiden so she could buff the damage that these archers were outputting. By the way, in case anybody was wondering why I brought her. Not to mention it's a little defense for Teclis. I did manage to net the other wild rider, and I'm going to hit it with as many arrows as possible. And I'm doing everything I can to head off the remaining cavalry, though it's pushing through the wild hunters. You can see just pushed all the way through this archer unit. The Wood Elf player desperately understands his need to get rid of my archers, but it's just not going to get them all at this point. I did have a chariot come back from routing, and fortunately for me, it's shooting some wild riders out there, even though I haven't microed it back into the fight just yet. Wild rider's going to get pushed out. I'm going to fall back with my archers here in just a moment, and I'll continue to use my chariots and net and anything I have to my advantage here to pin down these wildwood rangers. My Scions of Mathland, fortunately holding out in a fight and keeping a blob over here for quite a while, which has been quite useful to me. And I'm going to start getting a lot of units coming back from routing, and most of my archers that are coming back have ammo. So I now have one chariot unit here, and a second one coming back from the rout. This is very, very timely for me, so although I've misused them quite a bit up to this point, I'm going to be able to hold these wildwood rangers back and just tear them up with titanic chariots and focused archer fire from my Sea Guard. And if we can take the wild rangers, or the wildwood rangers, out of the fight, most of the cavalry is gone, and I might have a chance to regroup and try and pull this one back. It's going to be a very nice pendulum over here. Otherwise, his Glade probably wouldn't have liked fighting for a long period of time against all these Lothern Sea Guard with shields. That was a nice way to tip that fight very quickly in his favor, so nicely played by my opponent. Like I said, more units regrouping here. Some have ammo, some don't. I got to continue to fall back and try and use my ammo. If I don't use my ammo, I will certainly lose the battle. See, the Spell Singer knows to stay away from that fight, getting shot at by multiple units. I'm going to get a Wild Rider regrouped on me here. Do my best to just kind of focus it down. So I've got archers nearby that'll get an attack order here momentarily, and we'll see what we can do to get rid of this Wild Rider. He's starting to regroup his forces, and I'm going to start doing the same. He did have a Wildwood Ranger come back from routing. I'm going to go chase it down. I don't want it to get regrouped with the rest of its forces. I netted these guys just to make sure. I mean, as a use of magic, may have been questionable on my part, but to get these guys to sit still, not cause any more damage, and then me kill them, kind of felt like it was worth it, because I didn't want to lose any more archers because they die with their ammo. I need their ammo at this point. So the Wild Riders here, going to be driven out. And it's at this point I make sure that my fire at will is off. I have to choose my targets in order to maximize my chances. So at this point I have I think 3 spear units maybe. And I've got my one Sea Guard in very healthy condition here, so this is going to be the equivalent statistically as a spear unit, just with less unit models whenever it goes into melee. Some of my longer range archers are in good health with a lot of ammo. Teclis is in good health, although we know he's not much in a fight. But fortunately, the Handmaiden is in good health, and she is actually anti-large. So this puts me in good shape for fighting off some of the enemy heroes that are still left, which is the Spellsinger Lore Shadows and the Glade. So as my units regroup, I'm going to have the ranged advantage, and I want to use it. So I'm making sure to put my ranged units out front. I'm trying to keep my infantry back, because I am going to have to kill a decent amount of enemy infantry that is left. Not really worried about the infantry, though. I feel like if I can kill the ranged and the leadership, the infantry is going to go with it. And so I'll be focusing in that order, starting by killing the ranged here. So as these units move up, I'm going to fire back on them, see from the other side of the hill. And these regrouped Glade Guard will do a little damage, but they're just not going to be able to turn this fight here. Another Pendulum. Really wasn't a whole lot I could do to... I mean, I might have been able to try to move back. I just didn't see it in time. And these archers were, unfortunately, still quite a bit of ammo. So that is a pretty bad loss for me at this point. Something that would have been better if I could have avoided. My opponent has done a good job with his Pendulum. Yeah, trying to see the kills on that, but I'm getting nothing but Eternal Guard here. Spellsinger's got 75 kills, so very nice work with the Pendulum. My Chariots have a few kills. Probably not enough yet to amount to much, though both are close to a Chevron, which surprises me. The enemy archers are about to rout. This is going to force my opponent to engage in melee. I don't have a lot of melee, except for that, honestly, the best melee I have left is that Sea Guard with shields right here. These guys will be pretty decent in melee, and they're a good-sized unit. To be this late into the battle with most of their hit points left. So I'm going to try and do a little bit of damage to these Eternal Guards. The enemy leadership's going to come in. I'm going to try and meet the enemy leadership with my own and with some chariots. I want to disrupt the charge of their infantry as best I can. One of my chariots dies immediately, though. But this does allow me to doomflock quite a bit of the infantry, which will certainly help me because it's going to tear off hit points that I don't have to take out in melee. And then the Handmaiden's going to get in here, and the Handmaiden should be able to help me put quite a beating down on Glade. See my Sea Guards almost out of ammo. They had one more volley. I probably should have used it, but I'm going to throw them into melee here. And they're going to be a pretty formidable unit, I think, at this point. And then the Wood Elf player is trying to commit more of his Eternal Guard here, because if my horseman got caught in this fight, then I'd be in pretty big trouble. And I fled out of here thinking that he would probably chase me, and he did. It was a perfect opportunity for me, actually. So because he chased me, I'm going to net him, or net her, and we're going to turn around, and the Handmaiden and Teclis are going to come in and take out the Glade, who is now trapped away from support. So it ended up working out quite nicely for me there. I got away right before those reinforcements arrived, and that was a fatal mistake for the Glade. The Handmaiden's just going to cause a ton of damage right here. She's going to be very good in that fight. So Glade is out. Teclis is going to be able to get away, and the Wood Elves' morale breaks with their leadership gone, and it becomes a Pyrrhic victory in this elf-on-elf violence episode here. It was a fun battle. I really enjoyed that from Bushido Hunter. He said he was a fan of the video, so I appreciate him, number one, giving me a great game, and number two, appreciate him watching the videos. Didn't really know what to expect from the Wood Elves entirely, right? You obviously expect some range, you expect some wild riders, but you never know when they might turn around and bring some kind of crazy rush on me, which may have been difficult to stop, depending on how it was built. But I figured I wanted to use the longer range of the High Elf archers to good effect here, and use the ability of the Sea Guard to stand their ground as needed, to also gain an advantage. Lyrian Reavers to me are a fun unit in a lot of different matchups where you may have to chase after skirmishers or help slow down light cavalry. They're pretty cheap. And then the Tyrannok Chariots kind of surprised me. They both ended up picking up a Chevron, I think because of the work they did against the Wildwood Rangers. And then they just fired their arrows the whole time too, causing a little bit of extra damage. If you can micro these guys well, they can probably cause a whole lot more damage. Handmaiden was buffing the archers. That's why I had her sitting right up by two of the archers right in the middle, and it was pushing their missile damage up. And then again, she is kind of an escort unit for Teclis. because Teclis is so weak in melee. I needed something with some anti-large capability, and the net was there in case I needed to stop a forest dragon or a wild rider or any other key unit. And you can see that the net kind of gives you the ability to control certain units at the right time, and if you can use it properly to focus those units out, then that kind of gives you, a special advantage if you can use it right in that case. And so in this case, I do feel like it was worth it to me. The net ended up helping me hold back the Wildwood Rangers, helped me hold back Wild Riders, it helped me pin down the Glade. So a lot of very important stops with the net that we were able to make. Anyway, again, thank you to Bushido Hunter. Thanks for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. A couple of battles there, little sneaky Skaven action, little elf on elf combat, and I will see you all soon with some more battles. HeirofCarthage signing out.